me into my zone. Please don't let me into my zone. 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 Please don't let me.
Well. Welcome back to Krown's Kid. Okay, very happy it's a Tuesday morning over here from Helsinki, Finland, because that means that the weekend bullshit is over. And I feel like we're going to have a really fun video today. Anyways, I want to apologize for not being on Twitch last night. I did apparently I had an appointment that I completely forgot about right at the time when I was kind of planning to stream. So that put a little bit of a spanners in the works. But today I will certainly be on, aiming for a start time of between 9 and 10 a.m. Or sorry, is it 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern time. Really looking forward to that. For those of you in the Eastern Hemisphere, that'd be like 1 to 3 UTC, if that's, I don't know if that's right. Anyways, a lot of people very mad about my weekend analysis. Understand that I'm gonna have generally the same thing to say on most weekends. I don't trust weekend price action. Yes, price action of course moves during the weekend, absolutely, but I don't trade it, and I want to be very open and honest with that. And if that, if that's obtuse to whatever you believe, or if that really makes you mad, I guess, as apparently got a lot of people mad, then probably best to just click off this channel, because realistically, I'm gonna say that most weekends, I just do not trust weekend price action, meaning that I don't trade it. Doesn't mean that you can't make money on the weekends. Doesn't mean that price action doesn't move on the weekends. But for myself, I do not really trust all the tools that I use, as I feel like my technical analysis edge is diminished during weekend price action, when the major, when most major exchanges are not trading, when most people are just not paying attention. Most people, especially the people who run this market, especially the people who actually move price action, who actually have enough money to move price action, they're going to be taking, weekends off, and that means that the less sophisticated bots are going to be taking over and trying to liquidate people left, right, and center, of which I feel like we probably saw a lot of that over the weekend. Anyways, with all of that said, I want to get into the app scene right on over here. Let's power our way through. Oh, and by the way, I'm so fucking excited because I just set up my whole new computer, and I'm actually not recording from it right now, but this will be the last video that I ever record on my old computer. Anyways, going into a live scene right here, wishing you the best of the best and the haps of the haps, because why the fuck not, man? And what do we see on this? We still see that open interest is relatively high, 1.4 billion with a B, still looming overhead, so the big move yet to come. That's going to line up with our volatility analysis, which will be coming, that I alluded to yesterday, and we probably are going to see a pretty damn massive move sooner rather than later. I'd say within the next week and a half, extremely likely. Bitcoin dominance coming down a little bit, so yes, we have found a little bit of stabilization within this region, but overall, I'm gonna have to keep that in the back of my mind's eye when we go check out the Bitcoin dominance chart. Anyways, today, let's actually get into the, or do I want to show off this? Yeah, we can show off this for a second. There are a few new things with the Krown trading application. By the way, it can be found for free, 100% fucking free, at app.krowntrading.net, and a few new things for the people in the programs. You can now take notes on the videos like in real time. Really happy about that. There's also a new bonus video for the TA program, which I think is at this point in time, like the bonus videos that I add for the TA program, are they super necessary to be a successful trader? No, but it's really for the TA audits and the TA nerds out there. So if you're like me and you just want to get deep and down and dirty in this shit, then definitely go check that one out. And then of course we also have a couple new tabs. Any news section coming in right in over here. We got all sorts of great people showing their analyses here and just information. We also have a calendar of economic events, which you want to be you want to be in some way aware of. And then of course, coming in the next few weeks, we're actually going to be operating the trading system, or sorry, the trading tab right here, meaning that you'll actually be able to trade from the application itself, portfolio, and then the chat, links to Discord, going to all be integrated. So I'm really excited about that. And with all of that said, let's get into the actual price action chart right here. And what do you know? The blue boxes of peace and prosperity, nicely bouncing price action. Yes, we did have a little bit of a wick lower than this lower blue box right here, but that's completely fine. That's why we operate off, or at least I operate off closes. And I would say that Bitcoin more or less going to bounce probably back up at the very least, probably to 10,000 from this price range. We do see that hidden bullish divergence, is not in the works, at least on the 12-hour. But I do believe that it is perhaps present on the daily. No, sorry, it's actually not present on the daily. But I do think that nonetheless we will very likely get a little bit more of an extension of bounce here. Looking at just going from level to level, which I think is just the easiest way to be trading Bitcoin right now. As it, if you are going to trade on the weekend bullshit, you do see that it actually does respect the levels quite well. Well, I guess that would be the only way that I really want to do it. Anyways, as it stands right now, if we can get a close above this blue box territory, which would be about 9,800-ish region, I would look for extension on this run, probably towards, at the very least, 9,950. But realistically, I do think that Bitcoin would set up for another test of the 5 digits even. That's where things become a little bit more selective. I'm sure a lot of people are looking at this as a head and shoulders. The thing with this is that I don't think that this is going to operate as a head and shoulders. I think that this is quite literally a great example of weekend price action bullshit, obscuring the overall look at these charts. Let me just make sure that I'm recording and that my microphone's working. Okay, great, it is. That's awesome. Anyways, my point is that if you are looking at this as a head and shoulders, which it actually was, it actually was. The problem is that it happened over a weekend. We broke down below the neckline, the proverbial neckline below 9,800. But with today's price action, it looks extremely like that we're going to break back above that neckline. And anytime I see something like that, I would expect a move to get extended to the upside here. So I am short-term bullish here. I am medium and long-term. We'll get into that in just a bit, but I'll kind of titrate that one down. But because all of this price action, all this breakdown happened over a weekend, I'm very hesitant to be overall bearish on this. I do think that at the very least we're going to see, we're going to see this bounce get continued a little bit to the upside. Looking at lower time frame momentum oscillators, we do see that 4-hour Stokes pointed nice and north, coming off the lows right there. Very, very lovely. We also do see that 4-hour RSI regaining the exponential. We haven't done that in a little bit of time since 14th, Valentine's Day. That was Friday of last week. Not only that, we should see that 3-hour already kind of flipping around. Indeed, it is. We do see 3-hour Stokes up and at him as well. Going to be getting out of the bearish control zone, or at least testing it on this next tick here. And again, looking at me like it's already kind of confirmed above this blue box territory, which would initiate that next move towards about 9,950-ish region. So I do think that Bitcoin is short-term upside here. Now that doesn't mean that the downside is necessarily over just yet, but at least short-term, that's what I'd be paying attention to. Anyways, looking at 3-hour RSI, we're back above the bearish control zone. Nicely done. And that's a change of behavior from when? From the fucking 14th. Oh wow, it's so crazy. Over the weekend, you see it all get accumulated in this region right here. Or sorry, RSI gets shoved down in that region right there. That to me is a little bit of a warning sign that I'm not necessarily convinced that I'm not necessarily convinced that I should be bearish here. At the very least for short term, I'm not bearish here. 2-hour Stokes pointing back up and north. Nicely done. Back above the bullish control zone, the bearish control zone confirmed. 2-hour RSI getting back above the bearish control zone, like that read as well. Playing off some bullish divergence as well. So I do like all of that, and I do think that we're probably gonna again test somewhere around like 9,950-ish region, and hourly should already be there. Although hourly probably says that we do have a little bit of a pullback before all of that. If Bitcoin pulled back to like 9,700 or 9,650, that'd be completely fine. But I'm really not bearish, especially from the medium time frames, as long as we are above 9,600. This lower blue box right here, you see that no hourly's closed below, and short term, could this ebb and flow a little bit? Yeah, absolutely, of course. But at the current trajectory, I do think that Bitcoin is more or less going to maybe it comes back down, tests around like 9,750-ish region, but I do think that it's going to just generally float its way back into this region, and then we'll get like the real picture. So the real picture is going to be had from the medium time frames, meaning the 12-hour and daily. And there's a couple big things in the works right now. Let me just take off all the drawing tools. This actually kind of makes it fun because something new's finally fucking going on. And we do see that 12-hour Stokes. Look at them. They're coming all the way down. The second that these guys turn, I would be looking for not just short-term price action to come back up to about 9,950, 10,000 bucks. I'd look for a medium-term attempt back into the critical region to fill the CME gap somewhere around 10,150 to 10,200. Remember, CME gap coming in right around actually 10,350, but there is about $100 premium on price action. Actually, right now they're trading about parity, so I take that fully back. In fact, actually, CME is on a little bit of delay is trading. Hey, hold on. What the fuck is trading 98.55, but it's showing 97.70 right now? Strange, very, very strange. Yeah, okay, so we still do have a little bit of a price premium on that. So that still correlate with about 10,200 to 10,150 on spot price action, more or less the same. Overall, does look to me like, let's go over here to the daily for a second. does look to me like we probably will fill out this space and at the very least test back up to the 10 simple moving average on the daily right here. And with that said, I think it's time to go back down into spot and check out how these momentum oscillators are kind of correlating with CMEs right here. So we do see that daily Stokes are coming down pretty damn hard. That's okay, because we actually will be meeting this trend line right here. Lovely, and that should be coming in right at where? Right at the edge of the bullish control zone. So I do like that those things are lining up with each other, not only a trend line, but also bullish control zone. Usually going to bounce around there just from the prospect of being, in that price range. Jesus Christ, man, this chart is very convoluted. Let's go to a fresh chart right here. Let's just get everything off. There we go. We can go to a 12-hour, and I do think that this gets extended as soon as the 12-hour Stokes turn back up. So that'd be the next sort of major piece of price action that I'd be looking for. And at that point, I'd probably target somewhere around $10,000. Other than that, I really cannot get realistically bearish. Again, as long as Bitcoin's above 9,600, 9,550-ish region on a medium time or higher time frame closure. I've been saying the same thing for the last 2 weeks, ever since we closed above this region right here in beginning of February, on the 4th, it looks like. And I'd still be maintaining that same position essentially. As long as Bitcoin's above there, I am not bearish on the macro. Now, I'm going to actually show a lot of things now that are bearish, but I want to go into this conversation by saying I am not looking for that to play out until 9,600 is actually broken. Key fucking point of this whole thing. I'm short-term bullish here. I'm short-term fucking bullish here. I would change around to immediately bearish for medium and semi-long-term as well, at least for like another $1,000 move to the downside, most likely, if 9,600 is broken to the downside. So just putting it right fucking there, especially if our creative director is listening right now, this would be the time to clip this bitch. So as long as we're above 9,600, I am short-term bullish, medium-term, long-term. It's it's kind of like neutral to slightly bullish bias, but more importantly, I'm not bearish against what I'm about to show as long as Bitcoin's above 9,600. So what happens if we lose 9,600? That's when I start to really look at the 2-day to play out, which we alluded to yesterday. And remember, we actually just got another 2-day deal to closure as of last night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And what do you know? We do see that 2-day historical volatility percentile is now flatlining once again at the literally 1 percentile reading, which means that it's extremely likely to expand, and that's extremely likely to happen sooner rather than later. And I do think that we're going to see a nice volatility spike up somewhere to meet this trend line, which, to put this into perspective, this would give us about the same sort of violent move, at the very least what we saw back on over here in late January on this leg up. So we're talking about $500 at the very least, probably $1,000 plus though. And before that, we do have plenty of examples of what the sort of reaction with price action is when we get this low on historical volatility percentile, especially on a time frame like this, which last time that we were this low was back on over here on a 2-day in November 2018. That was before this breakdown, quite literally from 6,000 to 3,000. Now, after that signal was given of extremely low volatility, and again, we're talking about right here, end of October, beginning of November, let's actually measure it out, because this one actually did take a little bit longer in comparison to the other ones to play out. And once we got that very low volatility reading, it took at most about 2 weeks, 2 weeks at most to play out before this absolutely catastrophic price action to the downside, which was quite literally a 50% move to the downside, about $3,000, from that price point. So that's potential. Now, before that, we saw a little bit less of an aggressive read on this one. We do see that historic volatility percentile, again, getting extremely low, getting down to that one read right here. And this one plays out pretty much immediately. Within about 2 days from that reading, we get a move that is about 20% to the downside. Not bad. And this one only about, in price action terms, about, what was this? About $1,500. So again, still very much a big move, but that one's certainly on the lower side. The time before that we had a low read like this was, let me just make sure. It was right here in July 2018. So that was coming off of this low. And this one, again, takes literally just as much as at most 4 days to play out before that next major leap up. And this one from bottom to top, about a 32.25% move to the upside. Pretty fucking nice. So we're looking at a big move. Direction is a little bit, is not implied by this one, but we're going to come up with ways to kind of get direction. And again, keeping in mind that critical $9,600 number that I just kind of outlined, I am well, as long as we don't break that, I'm just expecting to kind of go to the upside essentially. Time before that we were this low was in May, middle of May. Coming on this one, I remember that this was consensus, which was going to save Bitcoin, and instead it punished all Bitcoin lovers. So we go all the way down, this one plays out pretty much immediately. It does kind of stair step its way a little bit, to be fair, but overall the trend here down, and we do see from that initial signal given to the next major low about 33.75% to the downside. We'll do a couple more examples because I do want to get some dynamic market cycles here. Here's obviously a long-term upwards market coming in extremely low on historical volatility percentile on the 2-day on 1st of October. And this one, this one really takes this one actually kind of takes a long time to play out. Does take about half a month. It looks like about 2 weeks. Again, 2 weeks on the longer side. But overall, I mean, this one, it's kind of unfair to say really, but I'd say at the very least, I'd give it like a 90% increase to the upside. Before that, the other times that we were this low were back on over here in October 2015. That was quite literally right here on the switch up from bear market to bull market when Bitcoin actually creates its first higher high on a weekly. And what do we see here? This one plays out almost immediately as well, and this one about 110% to the upside. We'll do just one more after this. I'll look at this guy right here. We do see it hits pretty much a zero read at like the 25th of May, and that's right before this move to the upside, just about, this looks like about a week later, a little bit less than a week later, and this one about a 46% move to the upside after that. So I do like that. So let's go back into present times, and we do see that, oh, motherfucker. I just got rid of my historic volatility percentile. All right, and I guess I'll just show everyone, because I get this question a million goddamn times. I guess I'll just show everyone my settings for this indicator. Oh, and it doesn't have my beautiful colors now. Bastards, fucking bastards. All right, so length I do 10. Whoops. And annual vol 100. And for the actual MA length, I should do a 20. Let's make this more. This like super in my face. Show me those girthy colors, my friends. There we go. And red as the devil's dick in this bitch. All right, cool. Anyways, okay, well, close enough. All right, cool. Anyways, so at current moment, hold on. This is showing different now. Let's see. I might have actually hit the wrong one. Okay. Historical volatility. Oh, here we go. It's this one right here. My bad. No wonder. All right, that makes a lot more sense. All right, beautiful. Yes. Okay, so we're extremely low here. I do think that this has my settings in. Yes, it does. 10-100. Beautiful. And what do you know? We are seeing that same extremely low read that we've seen in the past. That's precipitated, at the very least 20% moves, and at most, 100% plus moves actually. And there's a couple ways to kind of get direction from this. So I'd say first and foremost, the most important thing to me, bar none, is that 9550 to 9600 level, essentially just holding up. As long as it doesn't break, I can't really be bearish because, well, we quite literally have higher lows on a 2-day, and the 2-day trend is to the upside here. Problem is, well, we do see that 2-day Stokes coming down pretty aggressively from this topside region, which is usually going to be a high degree of at least having another few ticks down. On top of that, we do see that 2-day RSI is well below the exponential, and also getting kicked out of the bullish control zone. Although I do think that it bounced here as well. So if this does play out, assuming that this does play out, it's probably going to take a little bit of time. It's probably going to be more on the outlier side of like close to 2 weeks to playing out, rather than playing out within the next couple days. Or sorry, well, we've already kind of seen this read happen a few days ago. So actually, I can kind of titrate that down and say within this next week, very, 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 very likely we see this move of at least 20% plus or minus the upside or the downside. To the downside, that would kind of net us back down to about 8,500, and to the upside, that would, at current price, put us somewhere back around 11,500 to 12,000 bucks. Both of those are critical pivot points for the long term. And I'll go over to our long term chart right here. And first and foremost, the obvious thing that that we're looking at is if we did take the downside route, it would put us somewhere right around the weekly 21 exponential moving average, which I actually really do like. And I would be looking for likely a long term position there. You do see that long term, not to use redundant terms here, but long term we do see that Bitcoin loves to play off the yellow 21 exponential moving average. during its bull and bear markets. Anytime that Bitcoin comes down during its bull markets, it likes to base off there. You see it acting beautifully over here, and through the genesis over here, and to the downside, kind of same thing. And we do have a positive slope on the 21, which makes me more or less, not super bear. Like if we did come down around there, I'd be looking to be a buyer, is what I'm trying to say. On top of that, if we were to head to the upside, guess what? That's actually directly at our topside resistance right here. The resistance that's been holding this back ever since literally February of 2018, coming off of this rejection right here. So getting 1, 2 high, 3, 4, 5-ish, if you want to call it that, all in this region. That's also going to be where the CME gap is present. Now we have 2 on the board. We have one at 10,200-ish region, and then we have one right here at about 11,500 to 12,000. And then of course, on top of that, remember, we still do, or sorry, I guess I need these drawing tools right here. We still do have the inverted head and shoulders very much present on CMEs right here. And that inverted head and shoulders, key fucking point, is valid as long as we are above 9,600 on that, higher time frame closing basis. I would not use anything less than a 12-hour to kind of judge this one right here. And again, that is viable as long as we're above there. Now, here's where things get a little bit more hairy. Not like Potter, but we can show that both targets have a lot of validity to them. Bitcoin's either going to 11.5 or it's going to 85. And I can say that with a great degree of, I shouldn't say great degree of certainty, but with, I can say that, with as a trader, I could certainly stick by that. And I usually don't like to make super long-term calls like that, but in this price point I certainly can, just because volatility is matching up with open interest, which now we're going to match up with obviously targets that we just kind of spoke about, especially on CMEs. And then also we can extend this just one step further and say that historically speaking, when we're on the 2-day and we are looking at this low volatility or historical volatility percentile, I should say, we do see that historically speaking, there actually are some good ways to kind of get direction from those, from our momentum oscillators. And the best one is looking at a combination of both stochastics and RSI, and of course RSI's relationship to the exponential on top of the overall trend. So 3 different things. We have trend, we have RSI, and RSI relationship to exponential, and then stochastics. So we do see in the past, and we're going to go through a few examples here, that on this breakdown right before this area, we do see that 2-day stokes were kind of floating around a lot. It wasn't actually all that helpful, but they were in the bearish control zone. So that would be tick number 1 in the bear side. They do end up, opening down, but that wasn't until after like the initial drop. That wasn't until after the initial drop. So it didn't really help right there. But 2-day RSI doing the same sort of thing, right? We get the low read on historic volatility percentile, and then right after that, we do break the exponential on it right on the dildo before the inevitable drop. And then on top of that, remember, 2-day trend was down the whole way. 2-day trend was down the whole way. So we actually do have, when you do have all those things kind of agreeing with each other, that's when the stars start to align. Right on over here, same thing. Trend is down. We do see that Bitcoin 2-day RSI breaks the exponential right here. That one's a little bit less reactive though, not really as helpful, because it would have told you to short like right here after that first initial dump, but we end up going about another $600 lower. So, it's not all that bad. And then 2-day Stokes actually a little bit less reactive on this one as well, but more importantly, getting rejected around the bullish control zone. So finding some resistance around there. So we can kind of come up with, all these different areas. Time before that was right around here. In this case, trend was down. Trend was down, obviously, but what we had more going for it is we do have 2-day bullish divergence here, getting back above the exponential well before that move transpired right here. So literally about 3 to 4 days before, and then 2-day Stokes heading upwards and onwards the whole way through. So I really like that. So again, when we have most of them agreeing with each other, 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3, that's when there's a high degree of probability in that move. In fact, anytime that you have just the majority on one side, that is where it's going to move. Time before that, of course, was this guy right here. We do see that 2-day Stokes kicked out of the bullish control zone, opening down obviously well before then, actually around the top. And we do see that 2-day RSI losing the exponential, even having a little bit of bearish divergence along the way, and well, back into the bearish control zone. So let's go line that up again, keeping those things in mind. And obviously Tron was on the same side as well. So here we do have trend to the upside. Trend is still up. However, we do see that 2-day Stokes are coming down here. Now I'm curious if they're going to be meeting some sort of a trend line. Actually, they are. So I do like that. Okay, so the most bearish thing to me would actually be 2-day Stokes right here. 2-day RSI. I do look at this as it's probably going to bounce here, to be fair. But I do look at this as right now a little bit inconclusive until we get this next pop back up, and then if it gets kicked out of the bullish control zone again, that's when I become bearish. But for now, it actually is very, very likely to bounce here. Regardless of whether you're bullish or bearish, it is likely to bounce here. It's just after that, do we get rejected from the bullish controls? And again, that would be the key critical ingredient. But all this kind of lines up with a little bit of an indecision phase right here, and that is why I put more importance on levels, kind of like Avicii. Anyways, we do see again 9,600 to the downside. That's when things become nasty right here. Anything, and I need to see a close below there. 12-hour minimum daily would be preferred. 2-day would be even better. If that were to happen, I would target a move down towards our 85, 8,600-ish level. So another $1,000 move to the downside. Remember, that would be in line with, even on the lower end, like a minimum 20% from top to bottom on that move. It would also be in line with the weekly 21 exponential moving average, coming in right around that level as well. And then also, if we looked at the Bollinger Bands right here, we do see a rejection of the top Bollinger Band. And usually after getting something like that, you will test around either the red 10 simple or the 20 simple, which is actually the gray guy down here. And that essentially creates a range between about 85 and 8,800-ish region. So anywhere between there would be about good. To the upside, it's a little bit more dubious, but we can certainly do it. We can certainly do it here. We can put back on all the drawing tools on these lower time frames. And in short term, it does look to me like Bitcoin's going to rally back up here, probably test, like I said, around 9,950-ish region, maybe $10,000. But nothing really gets decided in this range here from the medium and higher time frames. It doesn't really help all that much. Where Bitcoin starts to become immediately bullish once again for the intermediate and higher time frames is above this area right here, above the gap that we saw on CMEs coming in from Friday to today, Tuesday, or I guess they were trading yesterday on Monday, of course, because they are futures. But with all the professionals back in their trading seats today, I would say that this area right here is the conclusive area where I say anywhere above about 10,200, I'd look for a retest of 10,550, 10,600 highs right here, and then we just kind of take it one step by one step. But above that region, I'd look at anything above 10,550 as very, 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 very likely to get some more continuation up to 10,900 to 11,000, and then of course above there, that's when the CME inverted head and shoulder starts to come into play with a target of around 11,500. Also, we do see the prior rejections from that region, this region here coming from February 2018, and then more recently in middle of 2019. And then of course, if we threw on the volume profile, you do see that there's there is a massive change of behavior in this region as well. Anywhere above about 11,500 to 12,000 bucks, humongous difference in volume profile, which suggests that it is going to be an area of major fuckery, but also major potential opportunity in changes of behavior for like the super macro, if you want to call it that. If Bitcoin gets back above about 11,500 or 12,000, especially on a weekly closing basis, we can talk about upside targets, but realistically 16,000 to 20,000 is where I'd be aiming my target. It's very, very likely to float its way up there. It'll also be incredibly volatile as well, so I would be careful with that. But as it stands right now, the way that I kind of look at this is, if you are looking at this as an inverted head and shoulders, we've just simply come back down and retested the breakout point. Problem is, we kind of already retested it last week, and that is not so beautiful to myself. And we actually even did take out last week's low as well. So this potentially operating as a hangman. So I'm looking basically at like a $1,000 plus move to the upside, about $2,000. to the downside, about $1,000 to the little bit more than $1,000 to the downside from this current price point. Triggering effects for that would be medium to higher time frame close below about 9,600, and to the upside a little bit more difficult, but anywhere above 10,200. And there's no real like time frame for it, but especially like a 4-hour or even a 12-hour deal to close above that region. And yes, I just start to generally target 11,000, then probably a little bit of a pullback there, and then probably continuation over to 11,500, 12,000-ish region, at which point we might get rejected again for the long term and play out a very long-term downwards market again, or we actually do take it out and we can talk about glory times moon boobs once again. Anyways, I've just been speaking to myself the whole fucking time. Let me get back onto the lower time frames, and what I'm going to do today is I'm actually going to put a significant amount of importance on the altcoins, just because there are some altcoins that are showing a lot more strength relative to Bitcoin, and I do think that they could very easily take the reins here and provide a little bit more of a well-rounded bias. So I want to first put the spotlight on Mr. Buterin. Mr. Buterin has been holding this consolidation or this last like few days of price action much better than Bitcoin. Mr. Buterin makes me think that we are going to see very, 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 very likely back up to the prior high, somewhere around like 285, maybe 290-ish region. This looks overall fine here. We do see that momentum oscillators are a little bit on the tired side, and we will be creating some divergences, absolutely. But for now, any sort of a range between about 255 and 285 is constructive long term, completely fine, no problems with that. And I'd be looking for our low time frame oscillator to kind of reset. The big important parts here is that we actually do have a golden cross, the green and the purple, 55 and 200. And not only that, but we do now have kind of what would be interpreted as a test down to the next major moving average, which would be a 21x Benjamin average right here, the yellow guy. So to me, that is quite powerful. And at the very least, I would be looking for some short term up here, and kind of the same thing as Bitcoin, constructing ranges. I'm not really bearish on Buterin until we break back down below 250 on at the very least a 4-hour total closure. If that's to happen, I would actually look for a much significant move, much more significant and severe move to the downside around 220-ish region. So the stakes are very, very high here, but as it stands right now, looks to me like it probably wants to try a little bit of upside in the lower term timeframes, or in the very, very low timeframes. We're probably actually going to come down here a little bit, but I don't really have a huge issue with that. It's more about the macro here as we do approach these major massive areas. Of course, to the upside, if we go back to a weekly look here, we do see that upside. I mean, this actually looks fine to me from a weekly perspective. It actually looks fine as it is, and I do think that it's gonna ultimately test somewhere around like 305 to 310 region, somewhere in this pocket right here around the prior high. I actually do like that. So keeping in mind that weekly momentum oscillators are still up here, and that reminds me that I just completely forgot to talk about Bitcoin. Let's actually go back to Bitcoin for a second. So Bitcoin, weekly RSI, I've been talking about this for a long time now. Remember the blue box of peace and prosperity. Bitcoin is getting damn close to it, but it's not there just yet. And you can't imagine that the exponential on this RSI is going to slowly work its way up into this blue box territory, which long term has called our bear markets and bull markets. Anytime that Bitcoin's been above, generally good. Anytime below, generally bad. And you do see that right now, it's looking like it kind of wants to test that area, and actually would be looking for perhaps a longer term position on that region. So would it be relevant to think that Bitcoin actually does get a test down there and not break 9,600? Potentially, yes. But this is what makes it difficult. This is what makes it very difficult because, well, even with the price action that we saw, I believe with the price action that we saw yesterday when Bitcoin got down to about 9,500, 9,600, we actually were testing right around 56 marker right here, which is the upper echelon of this. But I'd give this one a chance to really operate itself, because a lot of people reached out to me saying, Krown, we touched the blue box and are you buying here? It's like, you're looking at a fucking hourly chart, but you're looking at a weekly chart, but trading the hourly. Be careful with that. What we really want to see is we want to see confirmations in a region like this. What you actually want to see is a weekly confirm down in this region and then bounce off it. So it's quite literally going to take some time if it is going to happen. And that's what I'd say about that. What else do we want to talk? I think that was kind of it with it. Yeah. So we can go back into the altcoins now. So Mr. Buterin does look to me that, on the higher time frames especially, probably does get another test of the upside. Lower time frames, however, actually look like they want to come back down to about 260-ish region, but that doesn't destroy structure or anything like that. It only applies short-term down. The only point where structure is destroyed, similar to Bitcoin below 96, would be Buterin below about 250 on at the very least a 4-hour delta closure. Okay, cool. What else do we have? Let's go look at Mrs. Litecoin, how she's doing. This one looking a lot more bearish. Put in a little bit of a lower high right here, even on a 4-hour. I think it is going to be coming back down to about 71.5 bucks. Let's see what a 12-hour looks like. 12-hour looks pretty split on this one too. I do like how it's held up above the 21 exponential moving average pretty damn well. This one's difficult. This one's quite difficult. Golden Cross does kind of set my bias to the upside. However, that would only be from a higher time frame perspective. Lower time frames can ebb and flow here quite a bit. I kind of have to say the same thing as Mr. Buterin. As long as we're closing 4-hour dildos above about $70.50, I'm not really bearish. I do think that we have some downside in the short term, but I'd probably be looking for another bouncy bounce in that region. That makes me want to go back on over to Bitcoin and see how Bitcoin's doing here. Does Bitcoin come back down and test around 96.50? Probably yes, but I do think that ultimately you are going to see it kind of just float its way upwards and onwards here through the midst of the day. Anyways, we also do have some nice bullish divergence, but yeah, actually we do still have some bullish divergence, and I do think that it has a little bit more to play out. Okay, cool. All right, let's go check out some of the other top shitcoins and see how they're doing. EOS, same thing, probably comes back down in tags around 430, 435 region, but I'm not bearish on it until it closes below, 4.25. On at the very least a 4-hour, preferably like a 12-hour would probably be better. But 12-hour to me looks like it wants to probably pop back up and tag around 475. So if I had to nail it down and as I go through these charts a little bit more, extremely short term, probably a little bit of a pullback. However, assuming that those critical areas are not broken, I'd be looking for that to actually be a nice bounce area, and then we see the medium time frames take over, and we see Bitcoin probably pop back up somewhere around like 99.50 to 10,000 bucks. That's when we're gonna have to come back and kind of see it in real time, because that doesn't really do anything for the higher time frames in that region. It's still considered more or less constructive. It keeps the more immediate bullish scenario open, but doesn't really give me any like specific entries or anything like that. So it's not all that helpful. Anyways, let's go check out Tron. How's Tron doing? Same thing. Looks like it wants to come back down to like 2.1 cent, but I'd probably be looking for a bounce around there. I'm not bearish until it closes below 2 cents even on at the very least a 4-hour. Other than that, we can let's go check out some of the market leaders like Link. Link just absolutely monstrously strong. We've been bullish on this one for a while. I'd still be bullish on it. I mean, this is a fucking phenomenal reaction right here. I maintain my target of 50,000 Satoshis, and this actually might get extended. I mean, we've almost hit it already. We got up to about almost 49,000 Satoshis. So I don't think that 50,000 is all that out of the question here. Now, I do think that we're going to have a pullback at around 50,000 Satoshis, also just kind of a nice psychological number. But I do think that it's a good signal that Link here is still bullish essentially. However, if it does get to about 50,000 Satoshis, we will extremely likely be creating some bearish divergence here on the daily. I know someone's going to probably say all the way back on over here, it's already present. Nope, that was like 3-4 fucking months ago. It's not really relevant to what we're looking at right now. But there will be some created very, very likely in this area right here. So if it does make another high, I do think that the run is coming to a little bit of a halt relatively soon, somewhere probably in like the 50 to 55,000 Satoshi region. Very, very likely, I'd say. Anyways, let me just make sure of this. Jesus Christ, man, fucking goddamn phone's going crazy. What's the other one that's been going crazy recently as well? Let's go check out BSV. Actually, I'm curious how this one's doing. BSV, USD. I guess Finex is the one to go to. And what do we see here? Still kind of consolidating at a high level. It's actually, I don't know when I made this chart. It must have been last week or something like that. But we're still kind of holding this ascending triangle. We can extend this a little bit more, something like this. And I'm not really bearish on this one either, man. until we actually well, just take out yesterday's low at 256.66. I'm not bearish on this one. Again, this is not a comment on BSV's like legitimacy as a trading asset. I know that there's a lot of drama that goes around with it, but I would say that overall, maybe short term probably comes back down to test this trend line about 289 to 290. But as long as it's holding it, this is reaccumulation right here. Daily RSI is more or less healthy. We do have hidden bullish divergence initiated, and I do think that medium term it's going to float back up to about 370-ish region, maybe even the top side of this resistance at 420. Great number as well. All major moving averages are bullish here, and again, I would not be bearish on this thing at all whatsoever, especially as we're above yesterday's wick low at 256.66, or even on a lower time frame close, like a 4-hour below 280, 282 region. And again, low time frames does look like it's going to come back here, but I would be looking for it to probably get picked up again. Not necessarily bearish on these guys. Other than that, we don't have anything to talk about on traditional markets. They are closed yesterday. We can look at gold really quick. Ooh, it's at my 290 target. Does it have enough momentum to actually break to the upside here? I think so. Daily RSI is looking relatively healthy. We also do have a breakout out of this descending channel right here, or is it a descending brawny wedge? Who gives a fuck? It's a descending channel. So I do think that we're going to work our way back up on over here. That's going to correlate with the breakage of this topside resistance right here on this ascending triangle. It looks very similar to BSV, by the way. And what do you know? Holy shit, a nice measure move to the top side of our next blue box territory, 1630. If I had to call gold as making the next move relatively soon, I'd say it actually does happen here. And I do think that gold moving up is generally good for Bitcoin, and this chart's bullish. I don't have any problems with it. It's good. It's fine. It's very. I do think that 1630 is a relevant target for the medium term time frames, even higher term time frames, and longer term. Well, we'll have to come back to it after that, but anywhere above 1600, I mean, it's kind of in a new breakout territory. Well, I do think that a short to medium term target of 1630 would be appropriate. It has a lot of space to fill out here, and there's really not all that much to be going off of between about 1650 and 1700. Let's see if we can maybe nail it down on a day. I mean, this is strong. This is fucking strong here. Let's see, maybe I suppose the next relevant region after that would be about 1680 to 1700-ish region. So yeah, gold good. Peter Schiff going to be happy, very likely at least. Euro dollar heading for fucking parity. No, I do think that euro dollar is probably in a bounce territory relatively soon, anywhere around 108. Which we're pretty much on right now. I've had this trend line in for a few weeks now, and I do think that we're probably going to bounce off it. So maybe a little bit lower here, 108 even. Be looking for a bounce off that, but overall continuation on the long term. So the bounce is very unlikely to revert any sort of trend. I don't really have even a target for a bounce. Maybe as much back up to like 109 if it gets lucky, but heavily bearish here, and higher time frames are just worse and worse. In fact, the monthly is saying that 108 is only going to be a short-term stopping point. Very, very likely we find ourselves in the 106 range. Longer term, this is pretty atrocious. Anyways, what else do we want to talk about? Let's get back on to Bitcoin. I didn't even talk about expected moves and probabilities and whatnot, but we can go check it out right on over here. So again, keep in mind, 9,600, critical point. I do not get bearish. I do not look at long-term price action or even medium-term price action to the downside until 9,600 is broken on preferably a 12-hour or higher. Might be worthwhile to look at it on a 4-hour. Let's see. Yeah, 4-hour closers coming in above 96.50 thus far. So perhaps a 4-hour could get it as well. If I'd kind of had to wrap up my thoughts and like give my thoughts before I look at expected moves, I'd say that we likely come back down to like 97.50, maybe even 96.50. But I do think that Bitcoin's going to bounce there and find its way back up towards 99.50 to 10,000-ish region in the interim. Now let's go check out the expected moves chart and see how that lines up. So we're on a 24-hour right here. We're on a daily essentially. Calculating the next 15 hours and 30 minutes of price action, and what do you know? We do see that the bottom side of the first aviation is coming in right around 9,600. So there is a less than 16% chance that we actually do break to the downside in this next 24 hours worth of trading period. And more importantly, with that, that means that it's a little bit unlikely that we actually do initiate that downside like today. So if the move is going to happen, it probably happens, a little bit later this week if it is going to come to the downside. By the same token, the top side of the first aviation is coming in right around $10,000. So I actually do think that it's actually relevant that we will see that area tested today, in this next like 24 hours worth of trading period. The 12-hour looking even better. We do see another squeeze of these rings to the upside. I do think that Bitcoin is going to float its way back up and test around $9,950 to $10,000. We do see that the bottom side of the first aviation even coming in above 9,600. So very unlikely we break that by the end of today's daily total closure, because that's going to be coming in around 12-ish hours-ish region. And more likely that we actually, test around in this region right here. Remember, that doesn't do all that much for price action. If Bitcoin can get back above 10,000, not even above 10,000, but 9,950, and we can, so now we're going to synthesize it down just a little bit more. And we're only looking at lower time frames here right now, just to be 100% clear. 9,950 right here. If Bitcoin can actually close a 4-hour delta above there, I would look for extension towards not just 10,000. Again, if Bitcoin can close above here, not just test above here, but close above here, 9,950, I would look for extension overall to test around 10,150 to 10,200, fill the CME gap, and then game on once again. I don't have an opinion after that. I only have an opinion if Bitcoin closes above 10,200. I would get immediately bullish. That would look very, very good to me. If Bitcoin gets rejected there, not a humongous deal, but we'd probably play out a more long form consolidation between 96 and 10,000, or the low 10,000s, which is completely fine, longer term. So fair enough. Anyways, looking at this right here and matching it again up with the probabilities, you do see that quite literally that critical 9,950-ish pivot point for the 4-hour is well within the bounds of the first aviation, even to the upside. So we would say that it's actually more likely to test the upside today if we are going to make probabilities based off of historical volatility percentile. If we go down to the very low timeframes on this, like a 4-hour, which it's not designed for, by the way, so this is not going to have as good of readings. It would suggest that less than 16% chance to break below 9,700 on a 4-hour. So I do think it's kind of likely we test maybe around there, maybe 9,750-ish region. But ultimately, I don't think that is going to break down. I think that that's going to be a nice bounce area, and we find ourselves around the top side of the first aviation, which is coming in at 9,900. It is saying that above 10,000 is quite unlikely. That's also only within the next 4 hours worth of trading period. So it's going to be highly variable, of course. It'd be less than a 1% chance to happen. But just as important to the downside in the next 4 hours worth of trading period, which is actually going to get us right around this next 12-hour delta closure, which does hold a lot of weight on price action. Less than it's right around the second deviation, which is actually even above that critical 9,600-ish number. Less than a 2.5% chance to happen before this next 12-hour closure. So I do put a lot of weight on that. That's going to be the last 12-hour closure before traditional markets open back up for the trading week. And then the game is on. And if I had to call right now, I do think that this price action is trappy. I stick with what I said over the weekend. I don't trade weekend price action because I just don't trust my my technical analysis as much with it. Now, that's not to say that you can't make money with it. If you've been making a shit ton of money trading weekend price action, keep on doing what you're doing. I'm just relating my thoughts on that. I'm not saying that anyone should do this or that. This is, of course, never financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing my thoughts on these markets for better or worse. Hopefully it does help in some way. I do feel like today, I had a little bit better of a read on the market rather than the last couple of days, which has more or less been, hey, it's this is kind of like holiday time. I'm not really looking to trade this. So fair enough. That's what I'd be leaving you off with right now. Again, I do think that Bitcoin probably, very, very short term, maybe test down around like 9,750-ish region. As long as no 9,600s are broken, even on lower time frames, I am more or less looking for that to bounce back up, and we test somewhere around 9,950 to 10,000 bucks sometime early, early this week, and then we'll come back and reassess after that. Above 9,950 on a 4-hour total closure, I would look for extension to test officially the CME gap to about 10,150. 10,200, but until that happens, we're kind of operating in tight ranges here, and I look for price action to kind of just coil up a little bit as everyone is forced to wait. Anyways, that's going to do it for today. I want to wish you well. I want to say that I'll be back on Twitch later tonight, unless if there's any sort of like major catastrophic events again, or like if I forget it's something else, which hopefully I've not. I put a lot of work into making sure that doesn't happen, and well, you never know. You can't have any expectations with that. Anyways, I'll say goodbye to camera number 2. Goodbye, camera number 2. Hope you have a great day, and take care.